This is the first of a series of lectures about critical race theory and the threat that it poses to democracy and the threat that it poses to critical thinking, which sounds a little bit like critical race theory, so you kind of get those mixed up sometimes. And if I do, please forgive me. Critical race theory is a threat to critical thinking, it's a threat to science, and it's a threat to democracy. And those are the three major accomplishments of Western society, if you don't include the art, perhaps. If I'm going to talk about this, I have to explain the basics of critical race theory, of course. I have to explain the basics of critical thinking, which I think I want to do first, actually. Critical thinking is the effort to collaborate with other human beings in an effort to find solutions to very difficult problems. That's the way that I understand it. It's not just thinking. It's a way of communicating and working with other people to solve difficult problems. Critical thinking isn't easy. You might do it as a sport or a hobby, of course, and you do it anytime you make a practical decision, but to really get into it is really hard work. So when I talk about critical thinking, I'm thinking about it being used to make really important decisions. If you want to be a good critical thinker, and if you want to communicate in a way that's helpful, then you have to be clear about what you say. What you say can't be difficult to understand, or it's probably not going to be that helpful. What you say has to be accurate. So if you're going to say, for example, what would be a good example? A good example of when it's important to be accurate. Okay, when is it not important to be accurate? You give me an example. I'm not going to bother with a detail like that. You should be clear, you should be accurate, you should be relevant. So you shouldn't change, that's essentially, you shouldn't change the topic. If we're going to talk about, what would be an example? Okay, let's do this one. This will bug you. If we're going to talk about how Theresa Tam was apparently working for the Chinese Communist Party the last couple of years, then you don't want to change the topic and say, oh, she went to university and married Theodore, right? Because it's not really relevant to the situation. And you also want to be, so you want to be clear, you want to be accurate, you want what you say to be relevant, you want it to be concrete. It's not, you don't want to be wasting time with abstractions. Clear, relevant, concrete. Objective. I guess this is pretty similar to being accurate. You don't want to bring your biases into your assessment of something. So, for example, if I like Theresa Tam, then I can't let that cloud my judgment. She led our response to COVID. She was taking her orders from the World Health Organization, and the World Health Organization was largely taking its marching orders from the Chinese Communist Party. The Communist Party paid for the World Health Organization, who Theresa Tam works for. So I'm going to go ahead and say that she was working for her because she literally was. Whose interests was she looking after? I don't know. Her own. She wasn't dedicated to Canada. That's absolutely ridiculous to imagine that. So you want to be clear, accurate, objective, things you want to, if you contribute to a conversation, it should be relevant. You can't just go around changing the topic all the time. You have to be humble, because if you aren't humble, you can't admit that maybe you've got things wrong. You have to be patient, because a lot of problems take a lot of time to solve. You have to be honest, because it doesn't, generally speaking, help to enter into a conversation and be lying all the time. You have to be fair-minded because the idea is to work out a solution that is acceptable to everyone and not just one side. I'm doing this from memory, so you have to have the courage to stick through with something. So, okay, so I'll give you one that I would like to see someone have the courage to do. I'm not saying I'm a good critical thinker. I've studied the basics, but I can't say that I'm all that good at it. For one thing, to be a good critical thinker, you have to be courageous. So I'd like to see somebody stand up right now in July of 2021 and say that Jagmeet Singh slandered Canada when he said that mass graves had been discovered in residential schools. That's slander because he lied and he hurt the reputation of Canada. He should be charged with slander or libel. There's people who know about law who say that doesn't make sense, that wouldn't work. And legal technicalities, in a sense, are sometimes not the greatest test of what's right or wrong. He slandered the country. He lied. Whether he's technically guilty of slander or not, I don't know. Let the legal scholars play that out. But he should be punished in some way. At least people should be punishing him in the sense, look, you lied. I think you're a racist, Jagmeet, as sweet as you pretend to be. I think you're a racist. And you lied about the country, and we're going to say you lied. We're going to repeat the fact that you lied. And hopefully that will discourage people from voting for you. So that's an example where I'd like to see a little courage. Oh my God, 7 minutes already. Okay, I hope that start wasn't too rambling.